Dr. King strived to create a society of peace and nonviolence, yet now we're just trying to find the differences between each other when we should be loving our fellow people. Ultimately, love will be the change of cause. This next piece is Turner Welch with his speech, Loving Your Enemy.
Love. Love is often regarded as a feeling or an action simply reserved for those that are close to us. But what would it look like if we took love to an even deeper level and extended it beyond our comfort zone to our enemies? We live in a time of strife and bitterness that stems from our inability to forgive and to love. A time where members of different political parties can't engage in a civil conversation. A time where it's acceptable to slander, to dehumanize, and to look down upon someone who disagrees with us. Wars start, dictators rise, racism thrives, oppression remains, people divide, and families are separated as a result of an individual or a group expressing their hate for their so-called enemies. So why? Why do we continue to let it take hold in our lives? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke directly to this issue and embodied what it could look like bringing change through loving our enemies. Dr. King was a minister, a strong Christian man that used his faith and beliefs to propel his fight for civil rights and his nonviolent campaigns. Dr. King's view of love and its transformative power stems from the Bible and the teachings of Jesus. Christians, like Dr. King, are called to love their neighbor, friends, and family, but also to take that even a step further by Jesus when he says that, quote, "Your ancestors have been taught, love your neighbor and hate the one who hates you. However, I say to you, love your enemy. Bless the one who curses you. Do something wonderful for the one who hates you. And respond to the very ones who persecute you by praying for them." Regardless of one's faith position, Dr. King still says that, quote, "Love, even for enemies, is the key to the solution to the world, to the problems of our world." These bold statements by both Dr. King and Jesus were not said in vain, as both practiced what they preached. Both were spit on, attacked, screamed at, made fun of, and were eventually killed by their enemies. They had every reason to respond with hate, but they chose to stick to their convictions and truth. Dr. King acknowledges that this is not the easy route, and even requires one to go through immense pain, but he knows. He knows that it is the only solution to combating hate. Most of us hear this and think we have an excuse or a special circumstance that inhibits us from actually loving our enemies. Dr. King could have made those same excuses and considered himself to be the exception. The enemies Dr. King had to love were people that tried to hurt his family, brutally beat his friends, murdered his followers, and did everything in their power to stop his cause. Most would deem him justified if he chose to hate them, if he chose to respond with violence, and especially if he chose to respond with absolutely no love. But Dr. King, he chose to rise above the expectations of this world and respond with love towards his enemies. We can follow in his footsteps, not by yelling, not by gossiping, not by attacking, and not even by making our enemy believe the same thing as us, but by simply loving them. My father was able to experience this transformative power. When he was 30 years old, his father died as a result of a heart attack. At the time, his father, my grandfather, was being wrongfully sued by a man for something that he did not do. This incredibly stressful situation eventually led to his heart attack and his death. The rest of my father's family chose to respond with bitterness and resentment toward that man. My father chose to apply the same beliefs as Dr. King and Jesus. He chose to forgive him. To this day, the rest of his family still struggles with bitterness towards that man. But my father is able to walk freely from the shackles of unforgiveness because he chose to respond immediately out of love and not hate. 2019, a new year, a new start, but we still live in a time of great animosity. Some say this decade will be defined as one of hate. But I disagree. I disagree because we still have the chance to define what this generation will be remembered as. We still have a chance to rewrite the hate that has invaded our society. We can still change hearts and ultimately create a better future if we are willing to respond out of love and not hate. Who are the enemies in your own life? Maybe someone who has betrayed you. A classmate that said something you can't let go of. An old friend that abandoned you. Someone with a different belief than you. Maybe that person's in your own family. By following Dr. King's steps, by forgiving them, by actively seeking out the good that exists within them, and by using love to transform those relationships, we can and we will bring reconciliation. If we make this uncommon choice, we can reduce the political divide. We might inspire politicians to find common ground. We can change the culture here at Carrillo. We can lead our community into a time that looks out for the marginalized. But it all hinges on whether or not we are willing to let it start with ourselves. It can happen, but only if we are willing to engage in an open and civil conversation with someone on the opposite side of the political spectrum. If we are willing to bring back the art of listening. We are willing to lay down our weapons. We are willing to change the way we talk about certain groups of people. If we are willing to start by loving our own neighbors, our own classmates, and our own peers. Our hope does not lay in the next election or in the future generations to fix this issue for us. No, our hope, our true hope, comes in the actions we take in our own community. Our true hope comes in the way that we respond to the hatred of our enemies. Hatred doesn't have to be and shouldn't be the way we respond. We can ultimately flip the script of history and respond with love.